The celestial betrayal. The observation deck of the Horizon Seeker offered the most spectacular view of the galaxy, but tonight Orion Reed couldn't appreciate it. His fingers traced the edge of the data crystal in his pocket as he watched the stars blur past the reinforced viewport. Intelligence gathering had always been risky work, but never had he felt the weight of information so heavily. Captain Javana's voice crackled through the comm system. "Orion, report to the command bridge immediately." A chill ran down his spine. Had she discovered what he knew? The enhanced perception implants beneath his temples tingled with warning, a sixth sense he'd learned never to ignore during his years as Earth's most skilled scout. "On my way, Captain," he replied, keeping his voice steady despite the racing of his heart. The corridors of the merchant vessel seemed longer than usual as Orion made his way toward the bridge. Crew members passed by, oblivious to the storm brewing within him. The data crystal contained proof that Captain Javana had been selling information about Earth's defensive capabilities to the Valdar Empire, a ruthless civilization expanding through the Orion arm of the galaxy, consuming resources and subjugating worlds. The command bridge doors slid open with a soft hiss. Captain Javana stood at the center console, her tall frame draped in the crimson and silver uniform that denoted her rank. Her dark hair was pulled back severely, accentuating sharp features and eyes that never seemed to warm when she smiled. "Ah, my favorite scout arrives," she said, voice smooth as synth silk. "I have a new assignment for you." Orion stepped forward cautiously. "What's the target?" "Not so much a target as a delivery." Javana's eyes shifted to the viewscreen where a massive Valdar warship hung against the backdrop of stars. "The Valdar High Command has expressed interest in your particular talents." Blood froze in Orion's veins. "My talents aren't for sale or transfer. I serve Earth." Javana's smile vanished. "No, you serve me. The contract is quite clear. The deal is done. Your expertise will transfer to Valdar Command, and in exchange my pockets grow heavier and my ship receives protection during the coming changes." Betrayal sliced through him. "You swore an oath to Earth." "I swore to profit, and Earth no longer offers the highest return." She signaled to her security team. "Contain him. The Valdars want him intact. His perception implants are quite valuable." Orion's enhanced reflexes took over. He ducked beneath the first guard's reach, twisting to deliver a precise strike to the man's solar plexus. Alarms blared through the ship as he fought his way toward the escape pods, each movement calculated for maximum efficiency. "Lockdown initiated," the ship's AI announced dispassionately. "All escape pods disabled." Orion changed direction, heading instead toward the auxiliary craft bay. If he couldn't escape in a pod, he'd steal a shuttle. His hand pressed against the data crystal. This evidence had to reach Earth Command. Security forces converged from both ends of the corridor. Orion dove into a maintenance shaft, crawling through the tight space as blaster fire scorched the metal behind him. His implants processed every sound, every vibration, guiding him through the labyrinthine interior of the ship. When he emerged in the shuttle bay, he was greeted by the sight of Captain Javana waiting with 4 armed guards. "You always were predictable," she said, raising her blaster. "Your enhanced perception makes you think you're always one step ahead, but I've known you too long, Orion." "Not well enough," he replied, reaching for the environmental controls on the wall beside him. With a quick sequence, he triggered the emergency decompression protocol. Warning klaxons sounded as atmosphere began venting from the bay. In the momentary chaos, Orion sprinted across the open floor, diving into the nearest shuttle. The guards fired wildly, one shot grazing his shoulder as he sealed the craft's door. "Override code Alpha 79, Javana shouted, but Orion had already disabled the remote systems. The shuttle's engines roared to life as the bay doors began to close. Orion pushed the thrusters to maximum, shooting through the narrowing gap into open space. The Horizon Seeker grew smaller behind him, but the massive Valdar warship loomed ahead, its weapons systems activating. Green energy beams sliced through space around the small shuttle. Orion's hands flew across the controls, executing evasive maneuvers that pushed the craft beyond its design limitations. The first jump to lightspeed was rough, systems protesting as he forced the shuttle to perform calculations it wasn't built for. "Computer, plot course to Earth Central Command," he ordered. Unable to comply, the shuttle's AI responded. Navigation systems damaged, fuel reserves at 42%. Nearest habitable system, Terralis uninhabited frontier world. Another weapons burst from a pursuing Valdar scout ship caught the shuttle's rear section. Damage alerts filled the cockpit as systems began failing in cascade. Terralis it is, Orion muttered, programming the coordinates with one hand while trying to stabilize the failing craft with the other. The jump to lightspeed was brutal, the shuttle shuddering violently as stars stretched into lines. Warning lights bathed the cockpit in crimson as the hull integrity alarms shrieked. When the craft emerged from lightspeed, the blue-green world of Terralis filled the view screen, beautiful and indifferent to his plight. Re-entry was less a controlled descent than a barely survived fall. The shuttle's remaining systems failed one by one as atmospheric friction turned the outer hull into a sheet of flame. Orion fought with the manual controls, trying to aim for what looked like a forest rather than the stone mountains that dominated the landscape. The impact came in waves, first the trees breaking the fall, then the ground rising up to meet the craft with unforgiving force. Pain exploded through Orion's body as the restraints cut into his chest, and the control panel collapsed inward, pinning his legs. Consciousness faded as smoke filled the cabin. His last coherent thought was of the data crystal still secure in his pocket, the evidence that might save his homeworld if he could only survive long enough to deliver it. When awareness returned, it came in fragments, the scent of unfamiliar herbs, the cool touch of cloth against his forehead, the soft murmur of voices speaking a language his translator couldn't quite process. Orion opened his eyes to find himself in a stone-walled room, sunlight streaming through a circular window. His body ached, but the sharp pain had receded to a dull throb. Someone had treated his wounds and removed him from the wreckage. "The Wanderer awakens," said a melodic voice. Orion turned his head to see a figure step from the shadows. She was tall and lithe, with skin the color of burnished copper and eyes that shifted between amber and gold like sunlight through honey. Not human, but humanoid. Her elongated ears and the subtle patterns of light that seemed to pulse beneath her skin marked her as one of the Lumina, a reclusive species known for their healing abilities. "Where am I?" Orion asked, his voice rough from smoke and disuse. "Safe harbor," she replied, approaching to check the bandages on his chest. "I am Saren." "Orion Reed, how long have I been here?" "3 cycles of our moons." She gestured toward the window where 2 small moons were visible in the daylight sky. "Your vessel was not intact when you arrived." The memory of the crash rushed back, along with the urgency of his mission. Orion tried to sit up, gasping as pain lanced through his ribs. "The crystal," he muttered, hands patting his body in panic. "Where is it?" Saren reached into a pouch at her waist and produced the data crystal, intact despite the crash. It pulsed with energy. I sensed its importance to you." Relief washed through him as she placed it in his palm. "It contains information that could save my world," he explained. "I need to contact Earth Central Command." A shadow passed over Saren's features. "That may be difficult. The nearest communication relay was destroyed 2 cycles ago. The Valdar ships have been increasing their presence in this system." "They're looking for me," Orion realized with growing dread. Saren nodded gravely. "Yes, and they are not known for abandoning their hunts." As the implications sank in, Orion closed his fingers around the crystal. He was stranded on a frontier world with critical information and no way to transmit it, while the clock ticked down on Earth's future. And somewhere above, Captain Javanna and her Valdar allies were searching for him, determined to silence him before the truth could be revealed. "Rest now," Saren said, her hand cool against his forehead. "Tomorrow, when your strength returns, we will speak of resistance." Dawn broke over Terralis with crimson and gold streaks painting the sky. Orion stood at the window of his recovery room, testing his healing body. The Lumina healing techniques Saren had employed worked wonders. Injuries that should have taken months to heal were already mending after just a few days. A gentle knock at the door announced Saren's arrival. She entered carrying a tray of local fruits and herbs, her movements fluid and graceful. "You should still be resting," she admonished, though her golden eyes held a hint of approval at his improved mobility. "I've never been good at sitting still," Orion admitted, accepting the offered food. "Especially when there's work to be done." Saren studied him, her head tilting slightly. Your determination is admirable, but foolish if it reopens your wounds. She gestured to a simple wooden chair. Sit, eat, then I will show you something. As Orion ate the unfamiliar but surprisingly delicious food, Saren explained more about Terralis. This world was once a peaceful outpost, home to refugees from a dozen systems. We lived quietly, hoping the great powers would ignore our existence. Until the Valdars came, Orion guessed. They established a mining operation in the northern mountains 3 cycles ago. Those who resisted. Her voice trailed off, a flicker of pain crossing her features. Many were taken, others fled deeper into the forests. And you stayed to help the wounded, Orion observed. A small smile touched her lips. Healing is my calling, fighting is not. Once he had finished eating, Saren led him through a hidden passage beneath the small stone dwelling. The tunnel opened into a vast underground cavern illuminated by bioluminescent fungi that cast the space in ethereal blue light. To Orion's surprise, the cavern hummed with activity, people of various species working together, maintaining equipment, training with makeshift weapons. The resistance, Saren explained. What remains of it? A broad-shouldered man with cybernetic enhancements along his jawline approached them. His weathered face bore scars that suggested years of combat, but his eyes were sharp with intelligence. So our Skyfallen friend lives, he said, his voice a deep rumble. I'm Perseus, tactical coordinator for this mess we call a resistance. Orion extended his hand in the human gesture of greeting. Orion Reed, Scout for, he hesitated, formerly for Earth Central Command. We know who you are, said another voice. A tall figure stepped from the shadows, his blue-gray skin marked with intricate tattoos that denoted military rank in an empire Orion had only seen in intelligence briefings. Or at least what you carry. Darius, Saren said softly, was once a commander in the Valdar fleet. Orion tensed immediately, his hand instinctively moving to where a weapon should have been. Valdar, and you trust him. Perseus laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the cavern. Trust is a luxury, necessity makes strange allies. Darius approached, his movements precise and controlled. Up close, Orion could see that one of his eyes had been replaced with a cybernetic implant that glowed faintly blue. Not all Valdars embrace the Empire's methods, Darius explained, his voice carrying the distinctive metallic undertone of all his species. Some of us remember the old ways before the High Command's obsession with expansion. He defected, Perseus added, bringing with him codes, protocols, and enough inside information to give us a fighting chance. Orion remained skeptical. And what do you know about Captain Javanna? Your former commander, Darius nodded. She has been supplying intelligence to the High Command for nearly 2 planetary cycles. Your Earth's defensive systems, patrol patterns, colony locations, all compromised. The confirmation of his worst fears hit Orion like a physical blow. Then Earth is even more vulnerable than I thought. Which makes your data crystal all the more valuable, Perseus said. Saren mentioned it contains evidence of the betrayal. Orion hesitated, years of security training making him reluctant to share classified information. But these people were his only hope of getting the warning to Earth. Yes, he finally confirmed. Transmission logs, payment records, strategic assessments intended for Earth's enemies. Enough to expose Javanna and warn Earth Command about the compromised systems. Perseus led them deeper into the cavern network to a makeshift command center. Holographic displays showed the Terralis system, with red markers indicating Valdar patrols. The problem, Perseus explained, pointing to a larger marker in orbit, is this. The Valdar command vessel Dominion arrived yesterday. They're establishing a blockade around the planet. Nothing gets in or out without their knowledge. They're hunting me, Orion realized. Not just you, Darius corrected. They've accelerated their timetable. The intelligence Javanna provided has given them confidence to launch a full-scale invasion of the Earth colonies. The first wave departs from the neighboring system in less than 10 days. The news struck Orion like a physical blow. Then we need to warn Earth immediately. Impossible through conventional channels, Perseus said, manipulating the hologram to show the surrounding star systems. But, he exchanged glances with Darius, we may have an alternative. Darius nodded grimly. There is a quantum entanglement communicator aboard the Dominion. Theoretically, if we could access it, we could transmit your evidence directly to Earth Command, bypassing the regular networks the Valdars are monitoring. Theoretical indeed, scoffed a new voice. A woman with intricate mechanical augmentations covering half her face stepped into the light. Metal and flesh blended seamlessly along her jawline and across her scalp, where mechanical components replaced hair. Breaking into a Valdar command ship is suicide. This is Taylor, Saren introduced, our systems specialist. And voice of reason, Taylor added, crossing her arms. The Dominion has 16 layers of security protocols, automated defense systems, and over 500 elite guards. We have 37 fighters, outdated equipment, and now a wounded Earth Scout. Who happens to have the most advanced perception implants in the galaxy, Orion countered. I can navigate us through their security blind spots. And I still have command access codes, Darius added. Some will have been changed, but the lower-level systems operate on rotation patterns I memorized. Perseus spread his hands. See, not impossible, just improbable. Taylor rolled her eyes, both the natural one and its mechanical counterpart. Fine. If we're planning a suicide mission, I might as well help ensure it fails spectacularly. Despite her words, her fingers were already dancing across a holographic interface, pulling up schematics of the Valdar vessel. As they began formulating a plan, Saren pulled Orion aside. Your wounds are not fully healed, she cautioned. This mission will demand more from your body than it may be ready to give. Orion's gaze traveled across the cavern, taking in the determined faces of the Resistance fighters, people who had lost homes, families, and worlds to the Valdar expansion. Some causes are worth the pain, he said quietly. Saren held his gaze for a long moment, then nodded. Then let me show you something that might help. She led him to a small alcove where various plants grew under artificial light. Selecting a luminescent blue flower, she carefully extracted its nectar into a vial. This is essence of Stellaris, she explained. It amplifies neural pathways temporarily. For someone with your implants, it could enhance your abilities significantly, enough perhaps to compensate for your injuries. Side effects? Orion asked, eyeing the glowing liquid. Intensity, Saren replied. Everything becomes more pain, sensation, emotion, and afterward exhaustion, but it might give you the edge you need to survive. Orion accepted the vial, tucking it safely in his pocket. Thank you. Their planning continued through the night. By dawn, they had formulated what Perseus called a plan with just enough crazy to work. They would use a captured Valdar scout ship Darius had commandeered during his defection to approach the Dominion, broadcasting emergency codes. A small infiltration team, Orion, Darius, Taylor, and Saren, would board under the pretense of bringing critical intelligence. Saren, Orion questioned when her name appeared on the mission roster. You said fighting wasn't your calling. Healing is, she corrected, and sometimes healing requires removing that which causes harm. Something fierce flashed in her golden eyes. Besides, you will need a healer when your wounds inevitably reopen. The preparations moved quickly. Perseus outfitted them with what weapons they had, while Taylor modified communication devices to work within the Valdar ship's frequencies. Darius drilled them on Valdar protocols and commands. The night before their mission, Orion couldn't sleep. He found himself wandering to the surface, where Terralis's twin moons bathed the landscape in silver light. The beauty of the frontier world was breathtaking, untamed forests stretching to distant mountains, skies unmarred by the industrial pollution that plagued so many colonized worlds. It's worth protecting, isn't it? Saren's voice came from behind him. She moved to stand beside him, her copper skin luminescent in the moonlight. All of it is, Orion agreed. Earth Terralis freedom to choose our own paths. Saren's hand found his, her touch warm against his skin. I sensed something in you when I first found you in the wreckage, a light that refused to dim even as your body failed. Her eyes met his. That light will be tested tomorrow. I've faced death before, Orion said. This is different, she replied. The Stellaris essence I gave you, it doesn't just enhance perception, it reveals truth, even truths we hide from ourselves. Orion studied her face, noting the concern in her expression. You're worried about what I'll see. I'm worried about what we'll all see, she corrected. In moments of greatest danger, when the essence flows strongest, our truest selves emerge. Her fingers tightened around his. Remember who you are, Orion of Earth, when that moment comes. They stood together in silence, watching the moons traverse the night sky. Tomorrow would bring danger beyond measure, a desperate gambit to save worlds neither of them had been born to protect. Yet in that moment, under alien stars, Orion felt a clarity he hadn't known since before Javana's betrayal. Whether they succeeded or failed, this was where he was meant to be. As dawn approached, Saren's luminous patterns began to pulse with a soft rhythm. It's time, she said, turning toward the hidden entrance. Perseus will be gathering the team. Orion took one last look at the peaceful landscape before following her below. The resistance base had transformed overnight, equipment packed, fighters armed, determination etched on every face. Perseus stood at the center, his cybernetic jaw set in a grim line. The Valdar scout ship is prepped and waiting. Last chance to back out, he announced, though his tone made clear he expected no one to take the offer. Orion stepped forward, the data crystal secure against his chest. Earth's future depends on this mission. I'm ready. Darius nodded, his blue-gray features solemn. For redemption. Taylor sighed dramatically, checking her technical equipment one last time. For the record, I still think we're all going to die, but at least it won't be boring. Saren joined them, medical supplies tucked into pouches at her waist, her golden eyes resolute. For healing of worlds and souls. As they moved toward the hidden hangar where the scout ship waited, Perseus caught Orion's arm. Bring them back, he said quietly, if you can, but the message is what matters most. Orion clasped the older man's forearm in acknowledgement. The message will get through, I promise. The scout ship was small, its interior cramped with 4 passengers. Darius took the pilot's seat, his hands moving confidently across the Valdar controls. Taylor claimed the communications station, while Saren and Orion secured themselves in the passenger compartment. As the engines hummed to life, Orion felt the weight of their mission pressing down upon him. The evidence he carried could save Earth, but only if they could reach the quantum communicator on the Dominion and survive long enough to transmit it. The ship rose through a concealed opening in the forest canopy, accelerating toward the stars. Ahead, barely visible against the darkness of space, the massive form of the Valdar command ship waited, their destination and potentially their tomb. Transmission ready, Taylor announced, her augmented eye glowing as she interfaced with the ship systems. Broadcasting emergency codes, now. The response was immediate. The Dominion's commanding voice crackled through the comm system. Scout vessel, identify and state your emergency. Darius straightened, sliding effortlessly into his former role. Commander Darius Vex, identification code Alpha 970 Delta, returning with critical intelligence regarding Earth resistance movements. Request immediate docking and secure channel to High Command. A pause that stretched everyone's nerves to breaking point. Then, approach vector transmitted, prepare for inspection upon arrival. As the scout ship changed course toward the massive command vessel, Orion felt Saren's hand slip into his. Remember, she whispered, who you truly are. The Dominion grew larger in the view screen, a floating fortress of gleaming metal and deadly purpose. Their tiny craft approached the maw of a docking bay, weapons systems tracking their every movement. There was no turning back now.